This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
By popular demand, Place to Be Nation Wrestling returns to the Dirty South for Talk'n WCW, an episodic wrestler showcase designed to educate, evaluate, and entertain, with matches spanning the intimate stage of Techwood Studios to the heights of Space Mountain. Talk'n WCW presents the best, worst, and most surreal offerings from World Championship Wrestling. So cast your gaze to the Turnertron with hosts Jennifer Smith, Tim Capel, and Greg Phillips.
Hi, welcome to Talk'n WCW. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I'm here with the gangster of love to my sultan of swing, Tim Capel. How you doing, Tim?
Oh, fantastic. And very expressive as well this evening, like we aren't always here on Talk'n WCW, because we got a great one coming at you. I've been looking forward to this episode, and I kind of think it's overdue. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, let's bring in our third chair. That is Mr. Greg Phillips. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Some people call me Maurice.
Ooh.
Thank you. I'm doing well, guys. Happy to be back together. Remember last time we were like, hey, we're going to start doing this every month now? That never works out because of stupid life.
Yeah,
look,
life is.
These months go by faster and faster, I feel like. It just, a month used to be a lot longer, is what it
That's
comes
true.
down to.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be, you could spend a month on a Monday, really, and now it's just like they fly by, and before you know it, you've missed your mark here for Talk'n WCW, but that's okay because we're sticking to our format, and we're doing this episode. It is about, who picked this one? Was this you, Jen?
That was me. That was my selection.
Greg, yeah.
Okay, like I said, Greg picked this this topic. It is on the Midnight Express. Just the second time, I think, we've done a tag team here on Talk'n WCW. The first being the Steiner Brothers. Mm-hmm. And
recent
I know
Hall of Fame inductees, the Steiner Brothers.
Recent Hall of Fame and noted bovine corrallers, the Steiner Brothers. At least one of them. I'm trying to think if we've had any Midnight matches.
Yes,
we
talked about the Southern Boys match from Great American Bash.
Of course, I picked it. Yeah, dumbass. I would have picked it for this one if not for that previous installment. God, I love that match. And we've had some Bobby Eaton action as well in singles competition against Ric Flair. Great 2 out of 3 falls match at that one Clash. Which I like that match a whole lot.
Against Arn Anderson as well.
And against Arn Anderson. Yep. Mm-hmm. So here we get a dedicated episode for the Midnights. Look, full disclosure, I think we're all cut from that cloth of our preferred version of the Midnight Express is going to be Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I know that there are a lot of folks out there who always they love it doesn't get better than the original, whether it comes to the Horsemen, Midnights, whatever. Look, I definitely enjoy some Bobby and Dennis Condrey matches, but they didn't make any of our lists.
They did
I'm just
not.
gonna say it. It's all gonna be Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane.
Maybe that's something we can visit in the future. I'll be honest, I haven't watched nearly as much Condrey and Eaton as I have Lane and Eaton because I grew up with Lane and Eaton. So I've only seen a few of the prominent Condrey and Eaton matches. So to me, I just something so exciting about the Stan Lane version. We'll talk about that a little bit because he really does bring a lot to the team.
Mm-hmm.
He does. Yeah. Absolutely. So, Our first match on tap is going to be from 1988. Feels a little late. I don't know, for some reason to be talking like great Midnight Express matches, and that's going to be a theme, I think, of our show. Is most of these matches really from the late 80s or even early 90s, which you might think, oh, after the heyday. Not really, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think they ever really faded. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're talking that second version with Stan, there's not all that. There's not but all. There's only so much of it out there. Easy for me to say. So I mean, that's where we're going to kind of land with all of our choices. But I think I've said enough, Jenny. This was your pick. What have we got here?
All right, so we're at the Great American Bash, Baltimore, I do believe. One of your favorites, Tim.
Yeah, Baltimore Arena.
This is on July 10th of 88, and we're doing Midnight Express versus the Fantastics. I picked this one mostly for the Fantastics.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I saw one of their matches, I believe, on an episode that we did of Hidden Gems, and I freaking fell in love with them. And I was like, what is this? Who is this? What is happening? And so any chance I have to watch one of their matches, I do. So
was it a match against? I'm sorry to interrupt. Just curious. Was it a match against the Midnight Express that you saw, or were they going against somebody else?
I believe it was part of a tournament, and my memory is hazy on shit that I watched. But
maybe Crockett
it was
Cup
not. I want to say it was Crockett Cup. But I don't believe it was Midnight Express.
They had a legendary match that I've never seen. Or if I've seen it, I've only seen a clipped version. They had a legendary match against the Sheep Herders, who would later go on to become the Bushwhackers in the Crockett Cup. So perhaps it was that. I've only ever seen the clipped Turner home video version that they put on VHS that I rented from Blockbuster one time.
Well,
I don't know that match is on the Peacock version of the network anymore.
Lame.
Since it was, Hidden Gems. Yeah, that sucks.
So there's a couple of fun stipulations with this match. If Midnight Express loses, they and Jim will be lashed. Jim Cornette will be lashed 10 times. All right.
As you do. Yes.
I mean, seems natural. But fun twist, they're gonna put Corny in a straitjacket and suspend him from a cage above the ring during this match, just to ensure that he does not fuck around during the match, which I guess that's what it takes, really, to keep Corny off of a match.
Now, you could ask the question, couldn't they just bar him from ringside? But where's the fun in that?
Nah, who wants to see that? He's gonna run out. You can't bar him. This is how you bar him. Literally.
Have him, you have to, you can't take your eyes off of him. He's so slick. You don't know what he's gonna do. So he's gotta be out there, but he's gotta be in some way physically restrained from interfering in the match.
It should be noted, in the past, he had been suspended in that shark cage before, but he'd always found ways to slip foreign objects from the cage to the floor below to his clientele. So this was a way to prevent him.
Oh, really?
This was a way to prevent him from any surreptitious doings.
I'm glad you said that, because I wondered why the straitjacket on top of the cage. So that makes sense.
I'm assuming now that's an assumption, because I haven't watched the TV leading into that match, but I know I've seen some prior matches from the Midnights where Corny was suspended in the shark cage, and he would find ways to slip weapons down to Bobby and whoever Bobby's partner was at the time, be it Stan or Dennis. So I believe this way have just been an extra layer of protection to ensure that Cornette could not influence the outcome of this contest.
And he pitches a fit when they start to put him in. He looks genuinely scared. Like, I'm buying it. Like, he's sort of freaking out. And I gotta admit, if I was in a straitjacket, I'd probably be freaking out too. He asks the ref that's getting him in the jacket, like, are you able to be bribed? Can I buy you off $5,000? And ref says, I wouldn't do it for 10. And Corny says 15.
Who was that old man referee? I don't know that I remember ever seeing him.
I'm not sure. I want to say like one of the Fargos or something, Jackie or Sonny Fargo, one of those type guys, probably. One of the guys who looked like a zookeeper in like the early Starcades.
Corny says he's a crackpot. He's an honest man. They can't believe he can't bribe this old man. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really fun. And so anyway, they hoist him up, and it does look scary. I mean, they do this camera angle where he's just kind of hunched over, like sitting at the bottom. It looks very sad and lonely and scary.
He's calling to Bobby and Stan to help him.
Help!
Yeah. Poor Gary Michael Capetta, too, is so overwhelmed by all these stipulations. It's the United States Tag Team Championships versus the Lashings. And if reminds me of the poor whoever the announcer was in TNA that would have to do the King of the Mountain match every year.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so if the Midnights lose here, they get the 10 lashes, but Cornette is going to be suspended over the cage regardless.
Right.
And the Midnights will win the U.S. tag titles if they succeed.
U.S. tag team, yeah. Which, okay.
Yeah.
The Western States Heritage Tag Team titles.
I did like that Jim Ross on commentary points out that, most teams have a very poor win-loss record.
Right.
Win-loss record against the Midnight Express. The Fantastics, you see, are the exception. So they've won a few. It seems like they've maybe got the Fantastics number over a handful of encounters here in 1988, which most of those I think you can find on the network throughout various Clash of the Well, there's one on the Clash of the Champions from I think that March, and then a couple other just TV.
Yeah, there's one you can find on YouTube that was on Worldwide that is amazing, like one of the best tag matches I've ever seen. Well, and Jenny, Tim, it's very important to note that when in their matches against each other, you could say that they indeed have a fantastic winning percentage against the Midnight Express.
You would say that.
And
not poor at all.
It's not a poor record.
Tony wonders how the Midnight Express will do without Corny, given that he is usually a big factor in a lot of their matches. JR says that they will have a game plan, don't worry about it. And also they should have gagged Corny, too, when they put him up there, because he was screaming. Stan, so they start out Fulton with Stan Lane and Fulton. A lot of quick tags, which is what we'll say probably a lot about Midnight Expresses. Trying to keep up with who is tagging in and out is quite difficult at times because they are lightning quick. And this match is nonstop. Like they don't stop moving. Like it's incredible. They battle back and forth. The Fantastics get a good backdrop when they team up on Bobby, and then they do a little 2-on-2 with the mirrored moves with the both teams. The Fantastics run the Express out of the ring and shred a bit for the crowd. Stan and Rogers come back in to sort of reset. They get a sneaky tag in, and Bobby bulldogs Rogers pretty good, sort of flying right across the ring. Bulldogs him right.
I love that spot.
It was awesome. The camera caught it just right, too. Stan levels him with a clothesline and then eats an elbow by Bobby. Bobby gets one of those awesome neck breakers, and another two, but Rogers gets his foot up when he goes for the next one. More quick tags gets Rogers, another backbreaker. Rogers denied the tag again. Fulton argues with the ref while the Express are over there working Rogers over. Fulton, he gets in a lot of encounters with the ref during this match. Rogers is struggling and eats another 360-degree backbreaker by Bobby, which is so fun to watch. Like he just breaks off these breakers, like all the breaker moves. It's just like he just snaps them off, and it looks effortless.
Yeah,
it's so awesome.
It looks very ahead of its time. A lot of the stuff Bobby can do,
and it looks just so unlikely coming from him. Like
I know.
He's not built, as Dusty would say. He ain't built like the athlete of the day.
He's not, but goddamn, whatever it is, he has it. It's just in the wrong body or something. I don't know, but because I mean, he's from Huntsville, Alabama. If you didn't know that, and he looks like it. I mean,
he should have like a hillbilly offense to complement his, hillbilly appearance.
What would you refer to as a hillbilly offense?
Like a lot of Dusty Rhodes type moves, Like,
the jab, the quick jabs, and the
nothing real fancy.
Yeah. Meat and potatoes offense.
Meat and potatoes. There you go.
Well, that's sort of what his breaker moves are. The neck breaker, the back breaker. Like, he just snaps them off. Like, it's amazing. So they continue to keep Fulton away and to deny the tags. Stan continues to brutalize Rogers. On the outside, Rogers smacks Bobby's head on the post, but then is met with Stan where Rogers manages a sunset flip for 2. He's getting his ass beat for most of this little stretch.
And he gets these little hoop spots here.
Yeah. And the sunset was good, too. Pretty quick response. Rogers attempts to tag, but is pulled back once again. I'm waiting for Bobby to fly. I'm like, okay, this is good. Like, I'm enjoying it, but he needs to be jumping off that top rope for me. So then he finally goes up for the big leg drop. Pops me every time he does it. Sam gets the abdominal stretch on Rogers, but he still won't tap. Bobby back in. Goes up top for the rocket launcher, but Rogers gets his feet up. Another brief little hope spot for him. Finally, he crawls over to get that hot tag. Fulton hits the big body drop, or the back drop on Bobby. Stan trips Fulton up and power slams him on the concrete outside. With poor Rogers back in the ring. He can't get away. He's been bullied this entire match. He and Bobby crash into Tommy Young, who gets a finger in the eye. Rogers fires back, punching Bobby into the corner. Stan loads a chain up, but misses Rogers and drops it, and Bobby picks it up, wraps it around his hand, and nails Fulton with it for the win. So, sort of like, where did that chain come from? Did Corny manage to drop it from the cage?
That's a great question. Trust me, if it had happened, the cameras would have missed it.
Yeah.
They would have found a way.
I just assumed they did, and that's what happened. So they win the tag belts. JR's losing it on commentary, and he's outraged. Fulton grabs the chain, starts unloading on Bobby with it. Corny gets taken out. They grab him, drag him to the ring.
This was abominable. What a poor show of sportsmanship.
Ripped off Tommy Young's belt and whips Corny with it.
Whipped him
really
anyway.
Fun. Just whipped him.
Sore losers, the Fantastics are.
So great.
Right.
It was so great. After all that, motherfucker still gets whipped with a belt. The Express drag Corny out by the straitjacket. Just hustle him straight out the back. And then they do a little post-match interview with Corny, fired up, saying everybody's trying to kill him. So, I mean, this match has it all. Like, it doesn't stop. It's incredible tag team action. Not as much on the Fantastic sides because they get maybe 3 tags during the whole match, but
right.
But just the Express just working them over and just working so perfectly together. Stan Lane with his awesome, I think JR calls it ground game or something like that, but it really is true. Like he really is like the anchor while Bobby gets to fly, and that's what I love to watch out of this pairing. It's such a fun match. Watch it if you can. What'd you guys think?
Loved it. I like these two teams had incredible chemistry. First of all, for all the talk about the great rivalry of the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, and it was from from the matches that I've watched, I actually prefer the Fantastics matches to the Rock and Roll Express matches against the Midnight. And that's not to say the other ones were bad. They were great too, but these two teams just meshed so well. And we talked about in the Steiner Brothers episode that they had like that on offense, they were like no other team. Like they were the coolest tag team offense team probably of all time. Well, I gotta say, the Midnight Express were that before the Steiners were. Like they were every time the Midnight Express are on offense to me. Like not that they don't bump and they can bump and sell and feed and all that stuff, but when they're on offense, it is amazing. Like they have the coolest double team moves. They have the coolest arsenal of just strike moves, flying moves from Bobby. Then their moves always had fun names, like the divorce court for that shoulder breaker that Bobby does. The Vegematic, which they don't do in these matches that we're reviewing here, but that was always my favorite one that they did. The double goozle, stuff like that. You know, they just had such an incredible arsenal of moves. The rocket launcher, which, you know, as a kid, I was a little too young to see the Midnight Express in their peak, so I thought in my child brain that the rocket launcher was invented by the Owen Hart, Jim Neidhart tag team, the New Foundation. And of course later on through videotape rentals, I would discover that I was wrong. But they're so innovative, the Midnight Express are, and that shows throughout this match, even without the benefit of Cornette being at ringside, because he adds so much to their matches typically. But as they showed here, even without him, they were a great team. And the Fantastics, I think, are one of those teams that, Tim, I don't know, maybe you would agree with this or not, but like, doesn't it feel like the Fantastics are talked about more today than they were 10 years ago or even 20 years ago? It feels like their reputation is finally starting to maybe they're starting to get the credit they deserve.
Honestly, I couldn't have told you who the hell the Fantastics were 10 years ago. I really couldn't have. And I've watched wrestling on and off basically all my life, right? And it's just, they kind of would come in for these cups of coffee, I feel like. And I guess it's like you would hear the name of the team in passing and be like, oh, Fantastics had a great match against Midnights, Sheep Herders, whatever. But it just kind of didn't register with you unless you've really seen them. And there weren't many opportunities, I feel like, to see them on a national stage, certainly in a WCW, Crockett before that, you know, prior to probably the network becoming more of a thing. And that, you know, and people kind of wanting to go out of their ways to watch all these old shows. And it's so interesting to me, and that's, I think, a good jumping off point, Greg, because I was, in watching a lot of their matches, as I did for the greatest WCW wrestler and greatest WCW matches, back-to-back stretch projects we did on Place to Be Nation, the Fantastics struck me as just not the type of team that you would think would get over with an 80s NWA crowd, right? Like, right. There are a couple of these big old slabs of beef, California beefcake, really, who dress kind of stupid.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the vest and bow tie with no shirt look was very bold at the time.
I mean, what are we doing? It's like a Beverly, it's sort of a Bizarro World Beverly Brothers thing. And, you know, they have no real gimmick that I can ascertain beyond just being really awesome at tag team wrestling. Maybe that's all you needed for an 80s NWA crowd, because they are, as it says on the tin, fantastic at this sport we call wrestling. And yeah, everything I've seen with them against the Midnights, which that kind of occupies much of their 1988, is really, they're all different matches, but all enjoyable in their own way. And you know, I know I've seen that Sheep Herders match in the Crockett Cup, and it is really great. And it's one of those things that it does make you want to go out of your way to see more from them. And that's what I think a great team like the Midnight Express can do for you as a fan. It's not just to see the great matches that they were able to put on, the showcases that they have, but to serve as this like bridge to other great teams and great tag team wrestling. So that's, doesn't get any better than that for me.
I did look up that Hidden Gem episode, and it was the Fantastics versus Rock and Roll Express from Great American Bash '88 in Greensboro.
Wow.
It was one of the hidden gems.
I didn't know those two teams ever wrestle each other.
Yeah. That's what I'm
prime example.
Yep.
Now I'm going to go out of my way to watch that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's on anything anymore, but it was.
I'm sure it can be found. We have our ways and means, right?
That's true, the dark net and whatnot.
Well, yeah. I'm not, it's one of those, I'm kind of like, if you're going to give it to us and then take it away, then all bets are off as far as how we're going to get our hands on it now. But anyway, I really, I almost, when we did our past episode on just great matches from the Great American Bash, I was real close to picking this one, but I decided to go for the somewhat more obscure, Midnights versus Southern Boys, which I also think is tremendous. And, it's one of those, I would have picked that for this episode had I gone the other way. So it's kind of like we would have gotten them in either way. But yeah, I'm so glad that you chose this one. I was hoping we could talk about it.
Terrific match.
As far as the finish with the chain, my impression with that is just, there's a little moment before, Corny is in the straitjacket, but they've not yet, stuffed him into the shark cage, where he whispers something to Stan, who then in turn whispers something to Bobby. So it's kind of like, I guess the idea is he stashed or he hid the chain
somewhere around the ring. Yep.
Somewhere in the ringside, where he told him where to find it.
Good point.
I don't know if that really tracks, but maybe we can no prize that one away.
They missed it on commentary if that's the case. If they were supposed to, I don't feel like they got that over if that was what they were supposed to be getting over.
Yeah. So,
well, there's a lot of excitement in the air and at the Great American Bash.
That's true.
I think there was a Willie Nelson concert right before the show started. So.
Oh wow. Yeah. I sure hope they got Aaron Neville in here singing the national anthem.
Unfortunately, it took the genius of Eric Bischoff to bring us Aaron Neville into WCW many years later.
Damn.
But I guess the next match on our list comes from my selection. And that would be, of course, everybody knows. It's not at all like I'm trying to remember what show it was on right now. It was from the Clash of the Champions 4 Seasons Beatings. How could I forget? Right. The Christmas spirit was in the air. The leaves had turned, and it was time for a season of beatings in the National Wrestling Alliance at the time. And in this case, this contest brings us the main event of said evening, which is the freshly babyface Jim Cornette's Midnight Express taking on the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion of Wrestling, the Nature Boy, as he's referred to I've never heard him called this in an actual formal announcement before this, but Slick Ric Flair, along with the United States Heavyweight Champion Barry Windham, managed by James J. Dillon. This is really a big-time match, and even though there are no titles on the line in this contest, it is a big fight feel, I think was what we would say today if this were to take place. These are the two most prominent singles champions in the National Wrestling Alliance. This is the number one, in most people's eyes at the time, the best pure tag team in the industry, if not one of the top 2 or 3, fresh off losing their world tag team titles to someone that I didn't bother to look up before the show. And they're at the top of their game. The crowds are starting to support them after years of booing them. Somehow, Jim Cornette is a babyface, and Rick and Barry are gearing up. And one of the big storylines is Flair and Windham, the two dominant singles stars. Can they work against a well-oiled tag team? What happens when a truly great tag team takes on two great singles wrestlers? And Flair, does he have his attention divided because he's got to look forward to Starrcade and his title defense against the total package, Lex Luger? Barry Windham has to look forward to his U.S. title defense against Bam Bam Bigelow. And the Midnights are in the midst of a feud with the original Midnight Express, as they were labeled. Of course, Loverboy Dennis and Ravishing Randy, managed by Paulie Dangerously. So everybody's got issues going on, but make no mistake, the Midnight Express mean business. They want to take out the top 2 stars in WCW. And so that brings us to our match. And right away when this match starts, I thought the commentary was excellent. It's Jim Ross and Bob Caudle, I believe, on the call. Mm-hmm. And they set the stage brilliantly for this. Bob Caudle especially lays out the story of these 2 outstanding singles wrestlers. And you might look at it and say, well, Ric Flair and Barry Windham will wipe the floor with the Midnights, but the Midnights are considered by many the best tag team in the world. They're a well-oiled machine. They're used to teaming up. And that's really the story of this match, to start out with Bobby Eaton and Ric Flair start things off, and Eaton establishes, even right here early on. You mentioned earlier, Tim, that he wrestled Nate a few years later, but here he establishes he's not afraid, he's not intimidated, and he smacks Flair down in the corner. And I thought that was a really great way to set the stage and let the crowd know that the Midnight Express were not going to be intimidated or beat down by the Horsemen like so many had before. So really, the story of this match is the Midnight Express really control a lot of the offense in this thing. They put Flair and Windham both through the ringer, and mm-hmm. Flair and Windham are bumping their asses off this whole time. They're bumping and feeding. You get a double noggin knocker. There's all kinds of great stuff going on here. Spots that you don't see today in tag team wrestling. I mean, gosh, I can't remember the last double noggin knocker I saw. That used to be one of my favorites as a kid. I mean, what a great name too. But yeah, so they're going back and forth. The Midnights are doing backdrops on Flair. It's all the classic Flair spots. The flip in the corner, the flips in the corner and then runs right into Stan Lane, knocks him on his ass on the apron. Backdrop out of the corner. Chop exchange that he ends up losing, and to his chops get beaten out by Bobby's punches, and Flair powders to get some advice from James J. Dillon. It's really remarkable how they've managed to in the months since Great American Bash get a crowd here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 100% behind the Midnight Express, or at least 90% behind the Midnight Express, because you guys know we've seen most towns by 1988 you would have a loud Flair section in the crowd. But here they're pretty. They go along with it. They want the Midnight Express to win. They want Flair and Windham to lose, and they're invested in this thing. And where you see another great job on the commentary, JR and Bob Caudle explain in the course of the match that the Midnight Express are making much more frequent tags because they're more used to teaming up together. Mm-hmm. Flair and Windham are not tagging enough, and that's why they're losing the match. Flair will stay in too long. Windham will stay in too long. At one point, Stan Lane goes to kick Flair, and Flair catches his leg. And Flair uses that as a chance to tag Windham, but he holds the foot too long while Wyndham's getting in the ring, and Stan Lane enziguris him and then knocks Windham down. And again, great job by the commentary calling out the fact that Flair didn't know enough to let go of the leg quicker. Since he had just tagged his partner in, so they were both caught off guard. Of course, eventually the Horsemen managed to get the heat on the Express, and that's great because Ric Flair's awesome. Barry Windham, 1988 Barry Windham, y'all, one of the best wrestlers of all time.
Yep.
They're fantastic here, both of them. Flair's awesome in this match as he always is, but Windham might be the star of the match as far as an individual goes. He's just, his bumping is unreal for a guy that big. They're all over the mat, constant action. You talk about no slowdown here at all. There's great holds, like figure four, double figure four spots.
Double figure four, yeah.
Amazing.
Like Midnights.
This feels like Flair is it's a nice combination because part of it feels like a classic Ric Flair match, and part of it feels like a Midnight Express match. So it's really the best of both worlds. They're firing on all cylinders, all action. This match just keeps going, every time you think that you might know where they're going next, they change the heat segment. Wyndham tags in, takes over with some of his cool moves, his lariat that he does, which is always good. The chops, my gosh, you can tell when Flair's going to do his like chop battle spot versus when he really wants to get the heat. And when they're outside the ring, he nails Bobby Eaton with a chop outside the ring that just sounded like it split his chest open.
Yeah.
Takes over. And then, of course, the big climax of the match, if you will, is the Midnight Express have Barry Windham dead to rights. They hit him with a double team offense. I think they hit him with the high-low. And then Eaton goes up top.
1988, we're seeing a high-low / total elimination, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Pretty sweet.
Unbelievable, their tandem offense. And then Eaton goes up to the top rope, nails the Alabama Jam before it was called the Alabama Jam. Top rope leg drop. Has the U.S. champion pinned in the middle of the ring, but JJ is trying to interfere. So Cornette takes out JJ. The referee is dealing with them, and JJ's shoe, which he had in his hand, goes flying after Cornette hits him into the ring. Flair grabs the shoe. Who grabs a shoe, really? Grabs the shoe, cracks Eaton on the back of the head, rolls Wyndham on top. Wyndham, who's still unconscious, gets the 1, 2, 3. The Horsemen win, but they win by the skin of their teeth, and they had to cheat to do it. And then of course afterwards, Jim Cornette cuts a fiery babyface promo which is just still bizarre to see, talking about how they're gonna, reward the fans for supporting them and that they're gonna get back at the Horsemen. They already took out 2 of the Horsemen, referring to the fact that the Midnight Express had Arn and Tully's last match in WCW at a house show. NWA, I should say, but nonetheless. And so they took out Arn and Tully, drove them out of the NWA, and they're going to do the same thing to Rick and Barry when they get an opportunity. I don't know how y'all felt, but I thought this was a fantastic match. I just as good as the Fantastics match, just in a different way, because you added in that there was always something cool as a kid to seeing a great tag team against 2 singles guys tagging up, whether it was Sting and Luger versus the Steiners, which we talked about before. Hogan and Warrior against, that was Mr. Perfect and the Genius, so they weren't a tag team, but still, it was always cool to see these single stars tag up and what are they going to look like as a team, and you throw them in there with a team as talented as the Midnight, and it was just a recipe for success. Ric Flair at his best, Barry Windham at his best, the Midnight Express at their best, and for any doubts that they could pull off being a good guy team with that offense, absolutely. They're just so damn cool. Even when Stan Lane stops to do his little wiggle thing that he does, it gets a pop, because they're cool. So I loved it. What did you guys think of it?
Oh boy, I really loved it too. Ric Flair's in purple, which I always really do like, and the Midnights are also in a shade of purple. So everybody looks good. Wyndham looks it is so crazy to watch him do what he, in the same vein as Bobby, to watch him do, the bumping, he flies over the top rope at one point after, a love tap of a kick.
Yeah, he flies over the top rope and then bangs his head on the guardrail and does a bump off of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy watching somebody his size do that, and, I really loved the pairing of Bobby and Wyndham. When they're wrestling, and I'm like, yes, this is it. And I'm a huge Flair fan, but I was barely even looking at Flair in this match. To me, he's easily third best in this match, but it was all about Bobby for me. I was feeling Stan quite a bit though, maybe a little bit more in the Fantastics match, but and then we get that little inset promo by Paul Heyman. That was awesome.
Always
kind of popped up out of nowhere. Love me some unexpected Paul Heyman.
And that's how you managed to turn the Midnight Express face. That's how you managed to turn Paul E face, to turn Jim Cornette face, is to have somebody on the level of a Paul E who is just going to be such an obnoxious asshole. Especially here in the late 80s, doing his his total Johnny Dangerously cosplay. Like, everybody just hates this dude. Yeah. And the Midnights have been around for so long. They've been so consistently over for so long, mind you, as heels, that it should be easy. It should be academic to turn a team that fans just are so familiar with, to turn them face, even if fans are used to booing them, just because they have the respect thing going on, if nothing else. So it's just a matter of programming them against the bigger assholes, and you manage to do it off. You manage to pull it off because fans are really already kind of desperate to cheer for them, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. And Southern, there's nothing. I can tell you guys this as a longtime Alabama fan of wrestling and other things. There's nothing more obnoxious to a Southern person than a loud New Yorker, and and that's exactly what Paul Lee time. So that he was very, as JR always says about him, he was very easy to dislike, and he came in and instantly made an impact.
Oh, I'm so broken because I love him so much. Like, I never have disliked him. Like,
I haven't disliked him since I was a kid, but when I was little, he was super obnoxious.
Also, one of my notes say, "Break my neck, beautiful Bobby." So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a very particular fetish. Like, it feels like you can only get that one once, and then you got to make it count.
Well, it's worth it.
All right,
that's what I'm saying.
All right, honey, break my neck, and I'll have the best.
That kind of goes along with my "Step on Me, Sweet Stan."
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're real horny for the Express.
Give me the claw, Barry. Didn't work as well for me.
Not so much. So you often hear, it's become a cliche at this point, I think, that commentators will often fall back on this adage that, well, in order to be a great tag team, you have to have two great singles wrestlers. You have to be a great singles wrestler in the first place in order to be great at tag team wrestling, right? And you get kind of sick of hearing it, but I think this is a match that really proves that out. Because you have that is exactly the setup going into this match. Two great singles wrestlers who are not tag team wrestlers against a great tag team. And, the Midnights have been at it forever. Flair and Barry individually extremely accomplished, and against each other have quite a bit of history as well. Ric Flair as a tag team wrestler is always a really interesting animal to me. I especially like a lot of his pairings with Arn Anderson. I think they gave us some great matches, especially like in that 93 stretch, against, the West Hollywood Blondes, and, that's when you got the Horseman Reformation and all this. So it's always interesting to me to see Flair as a tag team wrestler, because it seems like he's so out of his element. Like, he can't really be the ring general, but to a certain extent when he's, for half a match standing outside on the ring apron, right? Mm-hmm. So, you would think he would not be any good at it, but he's actually quite excellent. And that really goes to show in this match where, it's kind of telling the story that while Flair and Wyndham are individually able to gain these brief moments where they have the advantage in the match, they don't understand the psychology and the strategy of tag team wrestling as well as the Midnights do. So it's always very fleeting, and the momentum always just tends to swing back to the Midnights. And I think the commentators do a great job of backing that up. And Greg, you gave a great example of that too, just in your rundown of the match. So these little touches, I think, are just what puts it over the top for me. It is also just nonstop action, which you love to see in a tag team match. I don't know that I had actually seen this match before sitting down to watch it for our episode.
I definitely haven't. This was the first time for me.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered if this was like an old favorite of yours, or if this was just, you were looking for matches and came across this one, or what made you land on it? Because I'm pretty sure I'd never seen it. I
remembered reading Scott Keith's review of this Clash of the Champions, 20 years ago or whatever. And I remember, Tim talking about this match and wanting to see it at the time, but there was no way to watch Clash matches at that time unless you downloaded them through LimeWire or something, and that was always a crapshoot. So, years passed. I never thought about it when I got the network. I never thought about it. I never went back and watched the early Clashes. And then, I was looking through, and honestly, this match is what made me pick the Midnight Express for my selection last time, because I don't remember what it was that brought it to mind, but I was like, I've never seen that match, and I bet it was awesome. So I want to watch it. I want an excuse to watch it, and so that's what I came up with for my match selection. But it's one of those matches that you look at it on paper and you're like, how could this not be great? And it lives up to the expectation.
It really did. I was blown away, and my knowledge of Clash, like deep cut Clash matches, is pretty weak. In all honesty, I've seen the big stuff that everybody talks about all the time, but there's a lot that this show, Clash of the Champions, is probably a big blind spot for me, just in terms of hidden gems and stuff like that. So I think I would absolutely classify this one a hidden gem. I also want to add that I love James E. and JJ getting into it at the end. Mm-hmm. I think it's unintentionally hilarious just seeing Cornette hit Dylan with the tennis racket. I don't know why, that really cracked me up. And of course,
so I gave you a sock, or whatever he says in the promo.
Yeah. And of course, that sends the shoe flying into the ring. It doesn't get any better than that.
What kind of shoes did JJ wear that they were a lethal weapon?
I just, has he got a steel plate in the heel or something? It's
possibly
gotta be, gotta be.
And Rick would remember that years later when they used the woman's shoe to beat Hulk Hogan, if you recall, in a tag match on Nitro, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Flair is custom made from head to toe. You got to figure maybe he's spared no expense on his manager as well, and said, "Hey, slip a steel plate and then bad boys."
Never know when you might need it.
Mm-hmm. And plus, just all the Flair and Bobby interaction here, just again ahead of their singles match that they will have. I just love seeing, like, Bobby will not back down from Flair. He won't let this guy walk all over him. And it's just one of those, everybody knows Bobby Eaton's reputation as the nicest man in wrestling. By God, Bobby Eaton is a sweetheart. And just seeing him just give it right back to Flair is just great. It is so awesome. Man.
And Flair's selling it. How many top guys would be willing to back away from a quote-unquote tag team wrestler?
A tag team wrestler, yeah.
It's very impressive that Flair did that.
Goes to show the respect he must have for beautiful Bobby, as we all should.
We should.
We don't deserve beautiful Bobby.
We never did.
We never did.
We didn't even deserve Sweet Stan.
No, you're right. You're right about that. Okay. Wow. All right. So that's two down, both matches from 1988. We're going to fast forward a little bit to 1990, which is really, honestly, the last gasp of this iteration of the Midnight Express before Bobby is going to go singles. He'll stick around. Shoot, he sticks around through the end of WCW, pretty much, just about, I think. But for Bobby and Stan as a tag team, sadly, this is really going to do it. So, and I guess the twilight of their career as a tag team, our last match takes us to Halloween Havoc, 1990, the UIC Pavilion. It's in Chicago. This is the show with the very interesting red ring mat, not ring apron, but
what the story with that
I don't know. I don't know if there is much of a story to it other than they just maybe wanted to change things up. Maybe it was an issue with blood or
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
An athletic commission or something that, you wanted to have. I mean, I like it in the spirit of doing something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I don't know that specifically I like the red, just the way it. I don't know. It does look weird. It just doesn't look right.
I was okay with it for
carpet.
Yeah, I was okay with it for a one-off, but for one show. But I wouldn't have wanted it to stick around after this.
Yeah.
It reminded me of when Ring of Honor had a red ring mat. I never really.
Did they try that also?
I think they. If I want to say that on the HD Net era, they did. I've just never. I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a wrestling mat traditionalist.
Yeah, right.
A boomer.
In any case, the match is Midnight Express against Ricky Morton, and so we've got one half of. Right. We've got one half of the Rock and Roll Express here. People are going to take us to task for not having any Midnight R&R matches, I guess, maybe. But I will just say that I think trying to find great examples of those two teams going head to head, again, we try to keep all our picks to what is available on the Peacock, WWE Network on Peacock. So it's sort of slim pickings, and I mean, you can go back to Mid-South, but this isn't a Mid-South podcast. So, I don't know. You just get more and more limited. I considered going with, the match from, I think it was Wrestle War Wild Thing, in 1990 as well. You had a Midnights versus Rock and Roll Express match there, which is pretty good. But it also is sort of more of a comedy match almost. Like, it's not by today's standards, but for the time, it's got a lot of slapstick in it. So I was like, I'm not really feeling that. You know what? We're going to go with at least half the Rock and Roll Express here. So it's Ricky Morton teaming with Wildfire Tommy Rich. Okay?
Now we have a pre-match promo, and I want to talk about this before we get to the meat of the match. So,
okay.
Ricky Morton, to his credit, is trying to evolve here. He's switched. He's got his gear looks a little different. He's got a little, kind of nice new vest. It looks like his hair. He's foregone the classic Ricky Morton mullet for a ponytail, which was the style in 1990. I think I pointed out before the podcast, the legendary villain of the movie Kindergarten Cop, Mobile, Alabama's own Richard Tyson, was sporting a ponytail in 1990. So no doubt that's the inspiration for Ricky there. And so you got Ricky Morton, who's a picture of somebody trying to evolve and keep fresh. And then you pan over and you got Tommy Rich looking like he just stepped out of 1981 Memphis on a bender. His hair is slicked back. He looks 20 years older than he is. Ricky Morton cuts a little fired up promo about what they're going to do in the match and wanting to do it for his partner, Robert, who's sitting at home with a bum leg. And then they go to Tommy, and Tommy has approximately, now this is not a word-for-word recreation, but he approximately says, well, I'm going to tell you something, boy. We're going to get out there. We're going to do our thing, boy. Woo!
Sound pretty accurate.
And then what more can you ask for? Look, the people love Tommy Wildfire Rich. That said, the people of Atlanta, Georgia are a long way from Chicago, Illinois, have to figure on this night. But that's okay, because we're not going to have to see a whole lot of Tommy Rich. And bless his heart. Look, I'm not trying to trash Tommy Rich. Look, he sold some towns. He sold some shows. Don't get me wrong. But he's one of those like veterans that they dragged in 1990 for some reason. They don't really. I mean, they're kind of on job duty, right? They don't really go anywhere.
The first wrestling show I ever went to in my life had Tommy Rich as one of the featured attractions. It was 1990. It was WCW.
There you go.
Mobile Civic Center, and I was treated to a show that I believe did not have Sting on it, but did have Tommy Wildfire Rich, the washed-up version of the Junkyard Dog, and Paul Orndorff.
Oh wow!
All his baby faces.
Was Tommy Rich over there in Mobile?
Yeah, I think so. All the baby faces were over. Yeah.
See, there you go. Now They do tell us on commentary that Robert Gibson is out rehabbing a knee injury, which he apparently sustained at the hands of the Freebirds. So we understand why it's not Ricky and Robert as usual here. And, that's good enough for me. So we're going to start off with Ricky and Bobby with standard collar and elbow tie-up here. And Bobby is feeling himself after a deep hip toss and stiff right hand. He always has those great punches, does Bobby Eaton.
Oh, yes.
But he goes up top a little bit prematurely, gets slugged in the gut on the way down. That leads to a pair of shoulder blocks by Ricky and a cool little crisscross sequence, and then a back body drop by Ricky Morton. Hurricane Rana by Ricky. How about that? Sending Bobby reeling into Tommy Rich, who is going to greet him with a bionic elbow, one of his few contributions to this match. But Stan Lane gets the blind tag, and he catches Ricky in a sweet power slam off of a Bobby Eaton backdrop. So some great double team maneuvering. Yep.
Didn't JR call the Hurricane Rana the Japanese head scissors?
He does call it.
I don't know that I've ever heard that terminology before.
I don't either. I wrote it down, and I was going to ask you guys if that's what y'all are calling that move.
He sure does. Because Ricky does that twice in the match, and I think JR kind of shrugged it off the first time, and then he's like, "Oh, I guess I got to call those damn moves. He's going to do it again."
It looks just like Frankensteiner.
That's what he comes up with. And it's not a bad Hurricane either by
No,
Ricky
it looks
Morton.
good.
Pretty convincing. So double teaming from the Midnights here. Morton goes to the outside. That's where Cornette's going to get his shots in with the tennis racket right in the throat. Good jab with that racket right in the throat to Ricky Morton there. And back in the ring, the signature martial arts kicks from Sweet Stan always looks so good. So Lane then slams Morton right on the ramp, propels Eaton off the top to the outside with a sick rocket launcher.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've seen them go from the ring to the outside onto that apron, connected to the ring like that, but pretty awesome. But Ricky Morton managed to survive that pin attempt back in the ring, and Lane tags out while in the process of getting rolled up by Ricky Morton. So cool blind tag there. Bobby comes in, hits a diamond cutter in 1990 to break up the pin.
Japanese.
I think a Japanese neck breaker. I think what happened there is he was going for his
the swinging neck breaker, and Ricky didn't go.
Because and Ricky just didn't go. So we ended up with a pretty awesome diamond cutter, which looked fine.
Asshole. He was fucking dead by then. He's getting his ass beat during this whole match.
I know, he's just been eating shit this whole match. I know it's just a mistiming thing. So we ended up with Bobby Eaton innovating the diamond cutter here in 1990. And so then we get a slingshot. And a slingshot backbreaker, I should say. So kind of like
so sweet.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So it's not just his old pop-up backbreaker that he would normally use, Bobby Eaton. It's this slingshot version off the ropes.
I've determined
real
through our show, I think I've determined that I will like any slingshot move. Period. There's none that I won't like.
Cool.
I hear you that. Kind of like, Tully Blanchard with his rarely used but always over slingshot
suplex.
Same logic here with the backbreaker.
The Ultimo Dragon slingshot powerbomb that he beat Ray with on one of our prior podcasts. It's just there's something about using the rope for that. It's weirdly satisfying to see a guy bounce off the rope perfectly like that. It's
that extra snap just does it. Another cheap shot from the outside. Jim Cornette with that tennis racket. Sweet Stan sends Ricky over the top rope while Nick Patrick is distracted, so we don't get a disqualification here, mercifully. But Bobby posts himself, and Ricky then gets a hope spot with here's our Japanese head scissors on the floor. But at least he's getting his shit in. Cornette, though, kicking Ricky right in the ribs to cut that little comeback off. And back in the ring, Bobby hits a beautiful Alabama jam. You were waiting to see it, Jenny. I know, all match.
Always.
I was too. Hanging on to it. As is Ricky Morton here, still clinging to life somehow in this match, tenaciously. Midnights go for another rocket launcher attempt. That hits knees. Now, finally, Ricky Morton making that hot tag to Rich, his partner, comes in with a Thez press. Maybe not the hottest.
That was his finisher,
hottest
too.
move to clean house with. Thez press, body slam, but then he gets pasted with the racket by Cornette, so that was short-lived. Now we have the great run-in by the Southern Boys, my favorite tag team, as you know. They're doing a Jim Cornette cosplay here on Halloween. This causes a distraction at ringside. In the confusion, Jim Cornette drops his racket. That allows Tommy Rich to retrieve it. Nails Stan Lane for the win here by the kind of ramshackle team of the Rock and Roll Wildfire Express, whatever you want to call it. Wow, what a clinic by Ricky Morton here. Ricky Morton giving new meaning to the phrase, playing Ricky Morton in the match. Face imperiled many times over here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know the Midnight Express have no one to blame but themselves for losing this match. And I hate to put it on our Alabama boy Bobby, but Bobby had Ricky Morton dead to rights. All he had to do was cover him, and instead he tried to get the referee to count him out to 10 instead of just covering him and getting the 3. And
how dumb.
Yeah, his arrogance got the best of him and cost him the match.
Lost the step there.
He is from Alabama, so.
Well, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, again, I think for a what isn't a regular tag team here, Ricky Morton and Tommy Rich. Not that we're going to see a lot of Tommy Rich here again. It's like basically one of those Midnight and R&R matches from, you know, their classic, probably house show circuit that they did 100,000 times over. But with Ricky kind of probably pulling double duty with a lot of these spots. You have to figure, since there's no Robert to bounce off of. But he's game for it. God bless him. And, you know, Rich, to his credit, does his part here. This is a show that has several classic tag team matches on it. This is where you'll find the previously covered Nasty Boys versus Steiner Brothers, which is maybe an all-time great tag team match in WCW. It's also got the Horsemen. Talk about a Flair and Arn Anderson team, which I just said I enjoyed so very much, against Doom. That's on this show.
Yep.
And then you have this match, which is the lesser remembered of the 3 really cool tag team matches, but I still like it. I mean, it's our opener to the show as well, so hot open, and I just really wanted to bring, again, some more awareness to a match that people probably know exists, but have maybe forgotten about or given short shrift, as I like to do on this podcast.
Yeah, good stuff here. And again, for me, I have to give almost all the credit for this match to Ricky Morton. The Midnight Express are awesome, but Ricky is doing yeoman's work here, because Tommy Rich does almost nothing in this match but stand on the apron and clap his hands. He comes in and does he comes in and does the world's
he gets
worst.
The pins. Bullshit, man.
Yeah, he comes in and does the world's worst Thez press. Which was his finisher. He did it at the show in 1990.
I was going to say, was that his finish?
That was his finisher, and they wondered why he wasn't over at the time, because and he did that at our show in 1990. Even as a kid, I was like, why did that man stay down for that? That didn't look like it hurt. But nonetheless, we're far removed from the Lou Thez press of Stone Cold many years later. But but Ricky Morton is so good here, so good. his selling, but he knows how to keep alive during the match. Like, he doesn't just turn into complete goo, because when you think that he is finished for good, he has a little comeback and he hits the Japanese head scissors or something like that. And he keeps it's just masterful, instinctual stuff, knowing when to come back, knowing when to sell, knowing that you don't have to just pop up and get everything back right away. You build the drama throughout the course of the match, peaks and valleys, and that's tag team wrestling, and really wrestling in general, but particularly tag team wrestling in a nutshell, is taking the audience on a ride and the making them feel something when the hot tag is finally made. And they do, to their credit. Like I said, Rich doesn't do anything, but he comes in and gets a nice reaction for coming in and doing that Dez press and a body slam or something. So, it's just a masterclass of tag team wrestling. The Midnights were known for that. Ricky Morton was known for that. And I would assume that, much like, all the great combinations in history, peanut butter and jelly, and so on down the line, really, you can't go wrong with the Midnight Express and Ricky Morton.
You cannot. I mean, I always like a Tim match because I feel like it has a certain, flavor. And
hidden gem quality.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about Tim's picks are just perfectly Tim. And
he doesn't go with the obvious picks, which is good.
Yeah.
He goes with something that a match that we've forgotten about, or in your case, I didn't even know about at times, or sometimes in my case, didn't even know about. So it's always a great selection.
And I think it's about this time during my watching, when I was preparing for this, when I start to realize that Stan and Bobby are in love, and that is why they're so good. Because I don't know, I don't have another explanation for all their greatness
now,
to get.
Do you think this is why this version of the Midnights is clearly preferable to the Bobby Dennis Condrey version? Because Bobby and Dennis Condrey, I would argue, were certainly not in love. They worked well as partners, as tag team partners, and as wrestlers, but they were not lovers in the way that.
No, you couldn't picture
Bobby
them caressing each other after the match in the hotel room, holding the titles betwixt their bodies.
And I don't mean it wholly sexual, which, I mean, I think you can probably go there, but I really think it's just like a love,
they're in sync. There's some patch stuff.
There's something about them as a pair really works, and I don't know jack shit about them personally, or I don't know a lot of their history, but I know what they showed me in the ring, and they have something that is super special.
They have that symbiosis, just like Flair and Arn.
Yeah.
Symbiotes.
Symbiotes.
But I mean, this is just another fantastic. I mean, I guess I wasn't prepared for that much greatness. I don't want to say that they're underrated. I don't think they're underrated at all, but it's just the discovery of them and how fucking good they are. Like Greg said, through this show, it just, it's still amazing to me to be able to fall in love with these wrestlers from 40 years ago. It's it's part of the reason I love doing this, and just to witness this. That's honestly how I feel about, in particular, Bobby Eaton. I just think he's a gift. He's just through and through a wrestler, and being able to watch him is super awesome for me. So I kind of got in my feels a little bit in this match. Just thinking
I don't hate that. Yeah,
about them,
Yeah, I don't mind it.
It's kind of Oh, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I sort of feel the same way, especially kind of in light of maybe, Bobby's passing, who, again, none of us deserved Bobby Eaton. Nicest man in the world. But, it's just one of those great success stories. I feel like you want to see a guy who is that beloved and respected by his peers be as successful as he really was in the ring. Was he ever world champion? No, but it's like, did he make a great living, doing what he loved to do? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at my GWCW, and I remember having a hard time with Bobby Eaton. Like, where do I rank this guy? He's so good. He was one of those just secret climbers on me, and I think I'm looking at it now. He ended up finishing like 22nd for me as my greatest WCW wrestler of all time, Bobby Eaton. Now Stan, I had a little bit lower than that, because, just more to a Bobby Eaton as a worker and to his career as a single star than Stan, but that's not to sell either one of them short. But I could watch this specific iteration of the Midnights, could watch their matches all day easily.
Same. I had the same note. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Never get sick of it.
It just makes me want to just sit here and just watch it, like, just on a loop. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
there's also, on the emotional standpoint, there's also an element of tragedy to this match, because this is, as Tim pointed out, the last prominent match that the Midnight Express have before breaking up. Jim Cornette and Stan Lane quit WCW shortly thereafter. And, due solely to the combination of Cornette's and Jim Herd's hot-headedness at each other, but also just the backstage politics of WCW, that the Midnight Express had been, shunted down the card and all that. But they were still operating at such a high level. I think Stan would retire in 93, roughly. So we could have gotten another, 3 years, possibly 2.5 to 3 years of Midnight Express matches. Just think about that. I mean, there's an element of tragedy to that, because they had a lot more left in their tank as a tag team.
Yeah. Because Bobby's still got a lot left as a singles guy.
Yep.
All right. Any other thoughts about Midnight Express?
No, they're amazing, and like you said, Jenny, I love the opportunity to go back and revisit them, because a lot of their best stuff was before I can remember wrestling very well. Like, I can remember aspects of wrestling from the mid to late 80s, but, foggy. And so, going back and revisiting some of their stuff that wasn't on the Starcades and stuff like that has been really cool. So I want to watch. I hope this is a team that we get to revisit again sometime down the line.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it next time. Let's just do a double.
Sure. Keep doing it.
The Talk'n Midnight Express podcast.
Yeah, this is what we do now.
Talking Midnight.
Look, don't even tempt me with that, because I will start a new podcast.
Well, hey, how about any honorable mentions for you guys for Midnight's matches? Not to say we couldn't do them in the future.
Well, I'm sure there's some rock and rolls.
Just pick a rock and roll express match.
I had that one from Wrestle War 90 on my short list, but I don't know. It's the one that I picked felt like more of a Tim match, right?
Right.
I thought about the Midnight Express versus the Dynamic Dudes from Philadelphia, I think it was, where the crowd boos the baby faces and cheers the heels.
Yeah.
I thought about that one. I do remember that
Douglas,
match.
what are you gonna do? I mean,
yeah, and Johnny Ace too. And I thought about doing the scaffold match where Cornette falls to his knees doom.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge fan of scaffold matches usually, so and having seen that one several times, I was like, I can do that some other time. But it's certainly one of the most notable Midnight matches, because Cornette blew his leg out famously, falling from the scaffold, of course.
Yeah, I have seen that. That's awesome.
And I'd mentioned previously that earlier Clash match between the Midnights and Fantastics. That was actually from the inaugural Clash of the Champions from March 27th, 88. What a great show that is. I mean, my God, you've got that. You've got the awesome title change with Luger and Wyndham.
Against Tully and Arn.
Against Tully and Arn. Then certainly that main event, Flair and Sting, which I know it has its naysayers, but fuck them.
No, it's amazing. It's a great match.
Yeah, and there's some good TV stuff out there again that you won't find on the network. There was one I watched on YouTube, Midnights versus the Steiner brothers. I think a worldwide, might have been a pro. One of those syndicated shows that if you want to see more of the love between Stan and Bobby, check that one out because they're just kind of consoling each other up and down after just getting pummeled by these brutes, the Steiners. It's just one of those types of matches, but it's pretty fun.
Now I could easily look this up, of course, but why do that when we can ask each other on a podcast? Is Worldwide on Peacock at all?
No, it is not.
Ugh, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean they're really behind the eight ball, and even getting like those early '90s Saturday nights up. Like the last time they added any of those was, I want to say, over 2 years ago.
Yeah,
like it was right when they moved to Peacock. They added a handful.
And didn't they stop sometime in like '93 or early '94?
We're still stalled in '93. Yep. Bullshit.
Get it together. If you're in the unlikely event that you're listening to this and you work for the Peacock streaming platform, get it together.
Get us some more WCW. God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have your The Office and your Harry Potter or whatever the hell else you got on your streaming platform. Give us WCW. That's all that'll sell.
Wow. Okay, guys. Who is up next time around? Next month or some iteration of months, whatever it is.
Who was our last episode about?
It's an impossible question to answer. I
think it's my turn.
I think that may be correct.
Right.
I think that may be correct because
it was Great American Bash before, wasn't it?
That sounds too long ago. I feel like that was.
Didn't you pick that one, Tim?
I did, but it feels like it was longer. I could actually check. How about that?
Maybe it was Lex Luger, possibly.
No, I'm pretty sure it was JB and then this.
In any case.
Yeah.
No, wait, it was Steve Austin, wasn't it?
No, it couldn't have been Steve Austin because it was my turn to pick, and I picked Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And I picked the Midnight Express, so.
Okay.
Anyway,
it doesn't matter.
Anyway,
I'm pick.
Yeah, who you got?
So, I don't know what sort of matches we're going to end up with when I pick this person.
Okay.
But
it's Disco Inferno, isn't it?
I have fallen in love with him through my ECW watching, so I've decided to pick Perry Saturn.
Ooh,
yeah.
Nice.
So he has been just absolutely mind-blowing in ECW, and I'm like, I mean, there's been some Saturday nights where I've watched some WCW stuff of his, but I don't remember the quality of those matches.
Sure,
so,
yep.
I'm curious what we will all come up with for this.
We did have that one against Saturn. I mean, against Raven.
Yep.
Yes.
We did the Raven episode, which was awesome. I would say his peak in WCW, but he still has a lot to offer. I am a huge, huge Saturn mark. So.
Yes. I knew you were.
By the way, her last episode was Eddie Guerrero, which was picked by me. So we're doing good. We are
okay.
Keeping with the rotation as intended. So
I can't wait losing our minds as the time goes on.
Steadily losing our minds in all sense of time. I can't wait to get into Saturn matches. I don't think we'll have any trouble coming up with some great picks for Perry Saturn.
Yes.
All right. What about plugs, Greg? You have anything you want to talk about?
I probably need hair plugs at this point, but other than that,
let's talk about that then.
I have nothing else to play. My Twitter account is at gphillips8652. No, I'm not changing it before you even ask. It's going to stay first initial, last name, bunch of numbers until the day I die, unless I change it, which I won't, unless I do. But you can follow me there to find takes on various take-like topics, candy bars, wrestling, comic book things, movies, existential crises, whatever you want to know about. I'll have some sort of a retweet that I'll hit that might cover it. So in any event, that's where you can find me most of the time. Other than that, no, I don't have any projects on the horizon. I believe I may be attempting to attend a much ballyhooed AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Super Show in June, where preliminary discussions are underway. We'll see if it works out. If that happens, I'll be sure to report back and advise of any goings-on that may occur. And I did also attend AEW Revolution back in March, and that was a lot of fun. So.
Oh shit!
Cool.
It's a good show, yeah.
Yeah. It was. What about you, Tim?
Well, the other wrestling podcast I do, it is also with you, Jenny, and it's with our friend Jacob as well. That is PTB NXT. We should have a new episode of that kind of around the same time that you're hearing this. Mm-hmm. We have officially entered the year 2015 in our NXT chronology. So we're kind of setting up some matches, setting up some feuds, some good storylines, heading into our next takeover event with Sami Zayn headlining his first as the NXT champion. A very cool, very fun time in NXT that I'm really getting into. Beyond that, I do a podcast with JT Rosero. It is called 9021 No-So. And as you might have gathered, that is on the North-South Connection podcast network. So, sister podcast to Place to Be Nation Wrestling, the North-South Connection. So subscribe to that today if you're a 90210 fan. We're going through every single episode of the show. We're about to finish that first season of 90210. Hard to believe. Just got 2 left, really, at the time of this recording. And we have a guest joining us each and every episode of 90210. So if you want to get in on that, you can reach out. Find me on Twitter. I am at Cyke68, CYKE68 on the Twitter. So if you want to be a guest on 90210, if you just want to talk about the show, doesn't matter whether you've done podcasts before or not. You don't even have to be a fan of 90210. Honestly, we like to say we'd love to hear from a hater. Just think it'd be fun and funny. Greg, I know, we'd love to get you in on some action there at some point, at an indeterminate date in the future.
As you get further along into the show, especially because I think I started watching sometime around the 2nd or 3rd season. I've still never seen a lot of the first season, which I was reminded of when I saw the. I don't remember what platform it was on, but I was scrolling through streaming platforms. 90210, and I looked at like the thumbnail image of the first episode, and I was like, "Wow, that looks way different than the show I remembered."
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds fun.
The theme is quite different in that first season. Also, it's a little, I don't know, more bougie than that thumping 90210 iconic theme that everyone is used to.
Oh yeah.
Kind of jazzier. It's weird.
It's weird that when I think back to 90210, as much as the actual theme song, I think of the like Gin Blossoms and stuff like that would pop up to play at the Peach Pit.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We'll be a while yet before the Peach Pit After Dark years, but and we're kind of working around. Are we going to be able to watch some of those episodes as they were originally presented with those musical performances? Stay tuned. We may have our ways and means here again. But yeah, that's a lot to say about 90210. So on again the North-South Connection podcast network. Jenny, let me throw it over to you because you might have some podcast news for our listeners.
Yeah, real quick before that, I just want to talk about this feed real quick. This is the Place to Be Wrestling feed, and the Place to Be podcast just had their 600th episode, so check that out. And all the other cool shows on this feed, we have, they've got a new YouTube roulette, there's a new PTBN's main event, NWA Saturday Special, and NWA Crock and Roll. and Highway to the Impact Zone all have new episodes. So listen to those. And as for the Jenny position, I have moved all of my content to the North-South Connection for those sweet, sweet downloads that I was not getting on my own feed. So those are going to be dropping every Wednesday on North-South.
Full transparency by Jennifer Smith.
Wow, it's the truth. Those will be all my shows, like Freak Out Drive-In, you heard about Pluto, and Talking Pop, and The Journey Through Infinity. Pretty recent episodes of all of those. The newest one being the 420 episode of You Heard About Pluto with me and my friend Rocco, where we watched Idle Hands on Pluto. Sort of a stoner movie for the holiday. So listen to that. And everything I do is linked on Twitter. I'm at Jenny Position. You can follow me there. And thank you guys, and we will see you next time for more Talking WCW.
Bye, everyone.
A lethal cocktail of opiates, narcotics, any.
I almost had a lethal dose of fruit cocktail about a month ago because I was trying to get the little pop off the can, and it bent like halfway instead of coming off the can. And so I thought, well, who makes a shitty product like this? So I went to kind of like get leverage on the inside of the lid and try to poke it up a little bit. Well, that didn't work out. Ended up cutting my finger.
Oh no!
I thought that's not a big deal. Well, it turns out I cut my finger significantly because I subsequently bled for most of the rest of the night, all over a variety of objects in the house.
Good Lord.
It was bad. I every time I thought I had the bleeding stop, it would leak through whatever I had on it. So
yeah,
I avoided going to the hospital, but now I have a nice little tiny scar to show for it. So
From a
fruit cocktail.
From a fruit cocktail.
Exactly right.
It's a hell of a way to find out you have hemophilia. I mean,
yeah. All I need now is the behind the music guy to do the voice and say, and that's when he received his lethal dose of hemophilia and fruit cocktail.
A lethal cocktail of hemophilia and fruit cocktail.
But that's Alanis Morissette, realize.
A lethal cocktail of hemophilia.
A chance
then
phone
cheap
call.
aluminum and fruit cocktail.
But a chance phone call from the drummer for Motley Crue would change everything.
Oh shit.
Greg woke up on the ground with the blade still in his finger.
Passing out from finger blood loss.
When we found the patient on the ground, he had lost a significant amount of blood and was surrounded by those little maraschino cherry things and those fruit cocktails.
We couldn't tell if they were cherries or coagulated blood.
Oh my god. The cherries are the best part.
They really are. Honestly,
well,
they sell them just the cherries now.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't ever buy those because I'm afraid it'll be too much. You know,
too many cherries.
Too rich. Yeah.